Warriors of Dominion, Zeus addresses those who answered Part 1 with overwhelming support. Your response has been worthy of the battlefield. A new power hierarchy is quietly reshaping the meta, and most players still haven't recognized what's really happening. The heroes deciding victories aren't always the ones everyone expects. Watch this carefully. Let's start with Electra, because right now she's widely considered the most reliable tank in the game, and honestly, it's hard to argue against that. She dominates on offense, she dominates on defense, and finding a tank that performs at this level in both roles is incredibly rare. What makes Electra so difficult to break through isn't just her durability, it's how every part of her kit punishes you for trying. Her embrace of pain creates a shield capable of absorbing well over 260,000 plus damage. While that shield is active, she can't be displaced, controlled, or interrupted. Crowd control simply doesn't matter. She plants herself on the front line and refuses to move, buying valuable time for the rest of her team to do their job. Then, when the shield finally expires, it doesn't fade away quietly. It explodes, reflecting more than half of the damage it absorbed, straight back at the enemies who spent all that effort trying to break it. And that's only the beginning. Oath of Protection redirects 40% of the damage taken by low health allies directly onto Electra. Instead of simply surviving on her own, she's constantly shielding the entire team by pulling dangerous hits away from her vulnerable backline. Pair that with Immortal Shell, which converts her defensive stats into raw strength at the start of every battle, and you get a hero who literally rewards every defensive upgrade you invest into her. The tankier you build Electra, the stronger she becomes. That's exactly why she's become the cornerstone of today's strongest lineups, often paired with Cascade, Fluffy, Orion, and Augustus. While those heroes quietly build overwhelming pressure from the backline, Electra stands in front and makes sure nobody gets through. Once you see that combination in action, it's easy to understand why she's become the frontline every top player wants. Orion, still relevant since the Dante days. Now let's talk about Orion, because he's one of those heroes who simply refuses to disappear. He's been part of the meta ever since the Dante era, survived multiple balance shifts, and somehow remains one of the most important pieces of the strongest Magic teams today. The interesting thing is that Orion isn't carried by massive burst damage alone. His real value comes from how consistently he applies magic penetration, and that's what makes him so dangerous. Every application doesn't just increase Orion's own damage, it creates openings for every magic damage dealer on the team. He's constantly lowering the wall that protects the enemy, allowing his teammates to hit much harder than they otherwise could. His abilities all contribute to that pressure in different ways. Total Destruction launches missiles at the enemies with the highest health, ensuring even the toughest frontline heroes are constantly under pressure. Antimatter Blast stuns the nearest target before bouncing to up to 2 additional enemies, giving your team valuable crowd control while spreading more damage across the battlefield. Meanwhile, Magnetic Field slows the enemy backline while dealing area damage, making it even harder for opponents to stabilize. Then there's Full Charge, quietly tying everything together by feeding Orion energy every time he attacks. That constant energy generation lets him cycle through his abilities incredibly quickly, keeping magic penetration active almost non-stop throughout the fight. And that's why Orion, Cascade, and Christa aren't simply 3 powerful heroes thrown onto the same team, they function as a complete engine. Orion tears down the enemy's magical defenses, creating the opening, and Cascade and Christa immediately capitalize on it with devastating follow-up damage. Christa, the rework that never stopped paying off. Christa's comeback story is actually pretty simple. Her Ascension upgrade brought her back into relevance, but what surprised everyone is that she never fell off afterward. Instead, she became one of the defining heroes of today's Magic meta, especially alongside Cascade. Everything in Christa's kit revolves around watermarks, and that's where her strength really comes from. Both chains of frost and frozen needles apply watermarks while simultaneously reducing the target's magic defense. That alone already boosts your team's damage, but the real payoff comes afterward. Once an enemy is marked, every source of magic damage dealt to that target heals your entire team for 50% of the damage inflicted. That's what makes her gameplay feel so overwhelming. Your team deals damage, watermarks convert that damage into healing, everyone stays alive longer, and because everyone survives, they continue dealing even more damage. The entire cycle feeds itself, turning every successful attack into both offense and sustain at the same time. The longer the fight lasts, the more difficult it becomes to stop that momentum. And Christa isn't nearly as fragile as many people expect. When she's under pressure, crystallization surrounds her with a protective block of ice that absorbs a massive amount of incoming damage exactly when she needs it. Then, once the shield finally shatters, it retaliates by exploding and damaging every nearby enemy. Even while defending herself, she's still contributing to the team's overall pressure. Lara Croft, the physical core you can't get back. Now here's a hero that hurts for a completely different reason. Lara Croft has been one of the core pieces of physical teams for a long time, and she's especially important in the classic Osh farming lineup. If a player owns Lara, she's almost always chosen over Dew because of the incredible balance she brings between sustained damage and team support. Her power of the tombs damages every enemy while simultaneously healing your entire team, giving physical lineups something they normally don't have: reliable sustain without sacrificing offensive pressure. Then her passive takes things even further. Every basic attack already fires 2 shots instead of 1. But when critical thinking activates and one of those attacks lands as a critical hit, those 2 shots instantly become 4. Over the course of a long fight, that translates into an enormous amount of consistent damage, especially when paired with her constant healing. Unfortunately, this is where the bad news comes in. Lara Croft was released as part of a limited-time collaboration event, and unless you already unlocked her during that event, there's currently no way to obtain her. As of now, there's no confirmed agreement or announcement suggesting she'll return. Could the developers surprise everyone someday? Absolutely, they've brought back limited content before. But until that actually happens, players who missed her simply have to work around it. For anyone building an Osh lineup today without Lara, Dew remains the closest and most practical replacement. Fluffy, the hero who quietly rewired everything. And finally, let's talk about the hero who may have changed the current meta more than anyone else, Fluffy. If you've been following competitive teams recently, you already know exactly why he's sitting this high on the list. The biggest reason is surprisingly simple: Fluffy makes Sebastian irrelevant in many matchups. That one interaction alone has completely reshaped how magic teams are built. Usurpation interrupts enemy ultimates the instant they're activated. If Sebastian's Ode to Serenity gets cancelled before it activates, he never gets the chance to cleanse his team. Suddenly, the hero whose entire job was protecting everyone from debuffs contributes almost nothing during the most important moment of the fight. And once Sebastian is removed from the equation, everything else starts falling into place. Augustus suddenly has a clear opportunity to begin stacking superconductivity without interruption, allowing the entire magic composition behind him to ramp up exactly as intended. One cancelled ultimate often creates enough momentum to swing the entire battle before it truly begins. But Fluffy is far more than just an anti-Sebastian counter. Deal with the Devil grants his team immunity to basic attacks while reflecting damage back at enemies who continue attacking into the effect. Opponents end up punishing themselves simply by doing what they'd normally do. Then comes to Hell and Back, which acts as a complete insurance policy for the team. any ally who dies during its duration immediately returns to battle with a substantial heal and a permanent attack boost, making failed eliminations feel incredibly punishing. Add heroes like Jorgen and Polaris into that composition, and everything starts clicking together. Between the disruption, the protection, and the relentless pressure, Fluffy's teams can end a fight so quickly that many opponents never get the opportunity to recover. Jorgen, the hero Fluffy brought back from the dead. Before we wrap up this section, there's one more hero worth mentioning, because his return might be the most fascinating part of the entire meta. Jorgen had practically disappeared. He was sitting on the bench, almost completely forgotten, and very few competitive players had any reason to pick him. Then Fluffy arrived. The interesting part is that Jorgen himself never changed. His abilities stayed exactly the same. The difference is that the environment around him changed completely. Jorgen's entire kit revolves around keeping his curses active. Leper redirects physical damage toward cursed enemies, Tainted Wounds steals energy every time they're attacked, and Torment of Powerlessness completely prevents enemies from gaining energy. The problem was always Sebastian. Before Fluffy, Sebastian's cleanse would remove those curses almost immediately, shutting Jorgen down before his abilities could generate any meaningful value. Now, thanks to Fluffy cancelling Sebastian's ultimate before the cleanse ever happens, those curses actually remain on the battlefield. They stay active, continue draining energy, continue redirecting damage, and finally allow Jorgen's entire kit to function the way it was originally designed. And honestly, that's one of the coolest examples of how a meta evolves. Fluffy didn't directly buff Jorgen. He didn't receive a rework. None of his numbers changed. Instead, one newly released hero completely shifted the environment around him, and just like that, an old, forgotten hero became relevant again without a single adjustment to his own skills. And that's the current state of the Hero Wars meta. Some heroes continue to dominate, others have made incredible comebacks, and a few have completely changed how the game is played. Knowing why they're strong is what gives you the edge. Now I want to hear from you. Which hero do you think deserves the top spot, and is there anyone you believe should have made the list? Share your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next strategy guide, update, or meta-analysis. Until next time, Warriors of Dominion, build with purpose, adapt before the meta does, and remember, victory belongs to those who see the battlefield before everyone else.